Hare Krishna. We're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, entitled Further Inquiries by Vidura. We're on text 10, 3, 7, 10, Srimad Bhagavatam. Narayanam namaskritya naram chavinarottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nicham bhagavata sevaya bhagavat utama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishviki. So Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, Text 10. We'll start with the Sanskrit words responsively. Yat, Artena, Vina, Amusha, Pumsa, Atma Viparyaya, Patiyate, Upadrashtu, Svashira, Chedana Adika, Yad Artena Vinamusha, Pumsatma Vibaryaya, Patiyata Upadrashtu, Svashirash Chedanadika, Yadartena Vinamusha, Pumsatma Vibaryaya, Patiyata Upadrashtu, Svashirash Chedanadika, Yadartena Vinamusha, Pumsatma Viparyaya, Patiyata Upadrashtu, Svashiras Chedanadika, Yadartena Vinamusha, Pumsa Atma Viparyaya, Pratiyata Upadrashtu, Svashiras Chedanadika. Yadartena Vinamusha, Pumsa Atma Viparyaya, Pratiyata Upadrashtu, Svashiras Chedanadika. Yadartena Vinamusha, Pumsa Atma Viparyaya, Patiyata Upadrashtu, Svashiras Chedanadika. Would anyone online like to lead the chanting of the verse? Okay. We'll go to the word meanings. Yat, thus. Artena, a purpose or meaning. Vina, without. Amusha, of such a one. Pumsa, of the living entity. Atma Viparyayo, Upset about self-identification.
Upset about self-identification.
Pratiyate.
Pratiyate.
So appear.
So appear.
Upadrashtu.
Upadrashtu.
Of the superficial onlooker.
Of the superficial onlooker.
Svashira.
Svashira.
Own head.
Own head.
Chedana adhika.
Chedana adhika.
Cutting off.
Cutting off.
Translation. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 3.7.10. Translation. This is Maitreya responding to the questions of Sri Vidura. The living entity is in distress regarding his self-identity. He has no factual background, like a man who dreams that he sees his head cut off. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. A teacher in school once threatened his pupil that he would cut off the pupil's head and hang it on the wall so that the child could see how his head had been cut off. The child became frightened and stopped his mischief. Similarly, the miseries of the pure soul and the disruption of his self-identification are managed by the external energy of the Lord, which controls those mischievous living entities who want to go against the will of the Lord. Actually, there is no bondage or misery for the living entity, nor does he ever lose his pure knowledge. In his pure consciousness, when he thinks a little seriously about his position, he can understand that he is eternally subordinate to the mercy of the Supreme, and that his attempt to become one with the Supreme Lord is a false illusion. Life after life, the living entity falsely tries to lord it over material nature and become the lord of the material world, but there is no tangible result. At last, when frustrated, he gives up his material activities and tries to become one with the Lord and speculate with much jugglery of words, but without success. These activities are performed under the dictation of the illusory energy. The experience is compared to the experience of one's having his head cut off in a dream. The man whose head has been cut off also sees that his head has been cut off. If a person's head is severed, he loses his power to see. Therefore, if a man sees that his head has been cut off, it means that he thinks like that in hallucination. Similarly, a living entity is eternally subordinate to the Supreme Lord, and he has this knowledge with him, but artificially, he thinks that he is God himself, and that although he is God, he has lost his knowledge due to Maya. This conception has no meaning, just as there is no meaning to seeing one's head being cut off. This is the process by which knowledge is covered, and because this artificial rebellious condition of the living entity gives him all troubles, it is to be understood that he should take to his normal life as a devotee of the Lord and be relieved from the misconception of being God. The so-called liberation of thinking oneself God is that last reaction of avidya by which the living entity is entrapped. The conclusion is that a living entity deprived of eternal transcendental service to the Lord becomes illusioned in many ways. Even in his conditional life, he is the eternal servant of the Lord. His servitude under the spell of illusory Maya is also a manifestation of his eternal condition of service. Because he has rebelled against the service of the Lord, he is therefore put in the service of the Maya. He is still serving, but in a perverted manner. When he wants to get out of service under material bondage, he next desires to become one with the Lord. This is another illusion. The best course, therefore, is to surrender unto the Lord and get rid of the illusory Maya for good, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 14. Devyesha gunamayi mama maya dharatyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayam etam taranti te. Om Mangana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupaketa mayam dadati svapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kansana Gorange Rate Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpata Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3 Chapter 7 Text 10 Yadartena Vinamusha Pumsatma Viparyaya Pratyata Upadrashtu Swashirash Chetanadika. The living entity is in distress regarding his self-identity. He has no factual background like a man who dreams that he sees his head cut off. Hare Krishna. So it's quite a grisly analogy there. Quite ghastly. And Prabhupada goes there again and again in the purport. So
But it's the exact same analogy Mayavadis also say.
yes.
Brahman Satya Jagat Mithya.
Yes, right. So the material, so and that's true. That's true. So the material world is false, and Brahman spirit is true. Okay, right, and that's why Prabhupada addresses in the purport how what Maitreya is giving, and just in the one or two verses before, Maitreya addresses the Mayavad conception. So. And just in verse 9, the verse before, Maitreya says, certain conditioned souls put forward the theory that the Supreme Brahman, or the personality of Godhead, is overcome by illusion or Maya, and at the same time they maintain that he is unconditioned. That is against all logic. So he's giving the Mayavad conception. And then, so of course the Mayavad conception has truth to it. That's why it's attractive. Material world is false. That is true and not true simultaneously, right? So that so material world, actually the material energy is eternal, and it's true. It emanates from Krishna, it's true. Now, the forms it takes are all illusory, like a dream. And my conception, so this body is real in a sense, it's made of energy of Krishna. So it's true, it's real, it's not illusion. At the same time, the particular form is temporary. We can say, oh, it's temporary for 60, 70, 80, 90 years, but even it's temporary for one moment, because we don't have exactly the same body we had when we walked through the door a few minutes ago, right? So, okay. So there's a sense in which the material energy is true, and there's a sense in which it's false. And also Maya means that which is false, that which is not, that which is not. So Maya is a particular energy of Krishna, and the energy is, but it's a particular energy that moves us into illusion. And it's not like it's poor us, we're victimized by that energy. We are victimized by the energy, but only because Krishna, Super Soul, is facilitating our desires to be forgetful of who we are and forgetful of our position as Spirit Soul, servant of the Supreme Spirit Soul. So the conception that this is me and this is mine, that's illusory. The forms are temporary, but the energy is real, right? Bhagavad Gita contains 5 essential truths: Prakriti, Kala, Ishvara, Jiva, and Karma. Of the 5 truths, 4 are eternal, and that includes Prakriti. And then 1 is temporary, that's Karma. Okay. And so there's a sense when the Mayavadis say, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, there's a sense in which it's true and a sense in which it's false. So through Bhagavatam and Lord Chaitanya giving the Achintya Veda Veda Tattva conclusion, Siddhanta of the Vedas, which we get through Srila Prabhupada, then that includes all that is true and complete from other philosophies, including Mayavad. It includes and transcends it. And so this Grissly analogy, and to help us to wake up, it's in a Jeev Jago, it's an appropriate terminology, because it's kind of like sleeping, right? Like if we're sleeping and then we're in a dream, and then in the dream we might see a grizzly head get cut off, our head get, or whatever. In a dream we're flying like a bird, or we're being chased by a monster and the monster cuts off our head, or we're enjoying in a palace or whatever. So that's what we're getting at here. So we're completely convinced in the dream that we are the scene. And we're completely oblivious that, no, we are the seer, right? It's confusing, that which is seen and the seer. So we're completely convinced that we are that person in the dream, the person with being chased by a tiger, getting its head cut off, the person who's flying like a bird. So we're seeing that, and we're thinking that we are the scene. But actually, we're the seer. We're the seer, and in one sense, so dreaming is ignorance, but it's all complex, because in one sense, sometimes the Bhagavatam describes the sleeping or the dreaming state as, in one sense, kind of like a relatively elevated stage of consciousness, because, okay. So just like we know, like right now, we're completely in illusion and conditioned life that I am this body, bodily, this is me, I am this body, all right? So actually, when we're dreaming, we have no longer attachment to the gross material body, in the sense we're liberated.
Transcendent.
That time for that.
For a short period of time. So it's not steady liberation. Because in a few hours I'll wake up, then I think I'm this body again, and like that. But for a brief period of time, we're liberated from the gross bodily conception of life. And then so then deep sleep, susupti, that's even thicker ignorance. And in another sense, according to the Bhagavatam, depending how we look at it, it's actually an even more elevated stage of consciousness. Because in the dream state, we're liberated from the gross bodily conception. Still though, we're identifying with the subtle bodily, the mind. In deep sleep, we're actually liberated from the conception of gross body and subtle body. So it's even a more elevated state from one point of view. And of course, then that's another proof of the non-physical identity of the self. That, because then when we wake up, we have a clear impression. Oh, I really slept deeply. I was out like a log. We have a clear impression. So it means that, okay, during that deep sleep, we weren't identifying with the body. We forgot all those emails we need to send, and we forgot it's just not there. Right, and we're not identifying with the subtle body. Still, the fact that when we awake, we have this clear impression: I slept deeply. So what is this I? there must be an entity that's not the gross physical body or the subtle physical body that's experiencing deep sleep. Yeah. I said, okay, so then, yes, yeah, it's so, so whether we use the dream analogy or Plato uses the shadow and the cave analogy, same thing in Western philosophy. There's the virtual reality, like if we're playing a virtual reality game, and or Krishna, beginning of 15th chapter Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives the banyan tree analogy, right? So we're like if we have the inverted reflection of the banyan tree, and we try to get those mango fruits in the reflection, there's no substance. There's no substance. So we might identify with the dream character, the virtual reality character, and let's say they're doing good. Oh yeah, they're really enjoying. But an objective observer can see like, no, that's not you. You're just falsely identifying with this dream character. You're falsely right, and so we're completely absorbed. I'm being chased by a monster. I'm enjoying in a palace. An objective observer can see you're lying horizontal on a bed in this room. There's no tiger, there's no palace like that. So Bhagavatam is providing opportunity through this conversation between Maitreya and Vitura to support us to wake up to our real life. Because there is just like, okay, so many analogies that go to the same place. Let's say a shadow, okay? I was having some correspondence with someone who's kind of coming with enthusiasm to Krishna consciousness. He's really reading Gita, hearing Krishna book, chanting japa. He's asking intelligent questions. And so we shared about, so like, let's say there's a shadow of a tree or a shadow of a person or a human or whatever. Let's say there's a shadow. And again, it's basically the banyan tree analogy that Krishna gives in the 15th chapter. So if there's a shadow, from the shadow, say the shadow of a tree, we're just in the shadow. From the shadow, we get no clue whatsoever what the actual substantial tree is like. Like if we try to smell the shadow, we just get no clue what the fragrance of the tree is like. Right? If we try to touch the shadow, we don't get any idea what the actual texture of the tree is like. So the shadow is useless, but it's not useless because from the shadow, we can clearly understand that the substance exists. Again, banyan tree from 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. From the reflection, we don't have any idea what the real fruits taste like. But from the reflection, we go, oh, there must be a real banyan tree. And we kind of discussed this a bit on Wednesday evening at the discussion for Lord Nrsimhadev's appearance day. So right there in that first verse of the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada, he addresses, he said a bit like the impersonal, the Mayavad philosophy. So they are correct. The reflection, there's nothing substantial there. It's all ephemeral. It's all, and there's no real fruit. So renounce the material world. So that's correct. Then Prabhupada, in his purport, he gives a brilliant explanation from geometry. From geometry, he goes, okay, right, so the reflection is false and nothing substantial, true. The impersonalists get that. He says, but that's only 180 degrees of the circle. That's only 180 degrees. A circle has 360 degrees. So Prabhupada says, then the other 180 degrees, that's the real banyan tree with real fruits and real substance and a real trunk and branches and leaves and etc. And real substantial fragrance and texture and form. Okay. And he says, okay. So to get an experience to get an experience of the real thing, that's the process of bhakti. That's the process of bhakti. And yes, and so this is so we create to understand the illusion, and then to go to Masima, go Tir Gama, and then because we as that irreducible quanta of consciousness that inhabits the body, we have senses, and we want substantial relationship and color and form and quality and activities and adventure and the whole thing, right? And so to get, okay, so this whole material sphere, that's the dull shadow. That's the dull shadow. And so to renounce it shows some intelligence. At the same time, we renounce it and we don't have something to replace it with, we're going to be empty. Prabhupada often quotes the text from the 10th canto. That if we could try to, merge into the undifferentiated oneness, but if because of some subtle or not so subtle envy, then we don't take to serving Krishna. Rishi Kena Rishi Kesha Sevinam Bhakti Uchyate. We don't use our senses and our mind to serve Krishna. Then because we want to be active, we're going to come back down to the material sphere. So this is very important. I mean, basic analogy Prabhupada gives, like if a child is being destructive, the parent can say, just sit in the corner and do nothing. So maybe the child can sit in the corner and do nothing for 10 seconds, 20 seconds maximum, but then the child's going to do the destructive thing again. So higher intelligence parenting is like, okay, give the child something constructive and healthy to do. That's more fun. That's more fun than the destructive thing. Child's fully engaged. Child doesn't even think about the destructive thing. So the child represents our naughty senses and mind and false ego and like that. And so in bhakti is, it's very world embracing. It's not world rejecting, right? It's not just don't think of that, eliminate that. No, eat and commit that whatever I consume will be Krishna prasadam. And we're so much happier than before we were eating Krishna prasadam. It's use, okay, like everyone likes to dance and sing. Okay, so spiritual life means no more dancing and singing. That would be boring and uninteresting. So we have dancing and singing in Krishna's service. Engage the body, engage the voice, whatever our psychophysical propensity, we're naturally inclined to work with our intelligence or our hands or work the earth. Do that and dovetail it with bhakti. And of course, the science of how to do that. Yukta vairagya, ansaktasi vishayam, at yatam upayunjata nirbandha Krishna sambade yuktam vairagam yuchate. Yukta, like yoga, to yoke. So engage everything in Krishna's service. Prabhupada describes that very, very nice. I like this term from Prabhupada. Prabhupada writes, and because this artificial rebellious condition of the living entity gives him all troubles, it is to be understood that he should take to his normal life as a devotee of the Lord and be relieved from the misconception of being God. Okay, so that term, that this is our normal life, to devote ourselves 100% to be servants of God, servants of Krishna. So I know in my upbringing, in the 60s and the 70s. So like, yeah, to give everything to serve Krishna or even to serve God, like that's really weird. That wouldn't be seen as normal. That wouldn't be seen as normal. So for me, my conceptions of what was normal, I needed to for me to gradually come to Krishna consciousness. It was a very gradual process for me, involving 3 years where my only service was consuming massive amounts of prasadam. And then
Very austere.
what's that?
Very austere.
Very austere, yeah, only prasadam. I appreciate being seen, thank you. Yeah, and then my heart was a little bit purified. I began to chant japa like that. That was back early 80s. And so, yeah, so for me, yeah, even because that was in my university town in Pennsylvania. I grew up in Philadelphia, and about 200 miles away was the university town, Penn State College. And I was actually in 1980, I began to read some of Prabhupada's small books, Science of Self-Realization, Beyond Birth and Death. And I could, my heart, my intellect, my heart was attracted, but I couldn't even admit to myself, what to speak of others in my life, that, hey, this really makes sense. So the only thing I could admit to people around is like, they got good food, those Hare Krishna. That's the only thing I could admit. Why? Because Prabhupada says he should take to his normal life as a devotee of the Lord. Because in my own conceptions of what's normal and healthy and good and true and what regular people do, if I were to, well, I'm actually kind of attracted to the philosophy and the lifestyle like that. People think I'm abnormal. People think I'm abnormal. I myself was thinking I'm abnormal like that. I'll just fast forward. I mean, some of you know parts of my life history, but so it was only when I left that scene, because I had different roles and relationships and positions and I had different images I was attached to, false ego, that's material false ego. And so in the summer of 83, I left Pennsylvania and I backpacked around Europe. And yeah, I backpacked around Europe. Summer of 1983, I was on what was called a Eurail pass. And I took, for a very low rate, I was taking train. I actually took trains from the southern tip of Greece to the North Pole. I visited almost every country in what was called Western Europe. Eastern Europe was not open. The Iron Curtain had not fallen. France, England, Germany, Holland, Norway. I actually literally went to a town called Bodø, Norway, which is within the precincts of the North Pole. So I noticed that wherever I went, again, I'd never even been outside of the East Coast of the United States by that time. I was 22 years old. I'd visit from Pennsylvania, I visited Florida, and I visited Boston, but never out of the East Coast. So this was my first day outside of the United States, and I landed in Heathrow Airport in England. And I noticed the first thing I did, it happened to be a Sunday, I found myself that evening, I found myself at the Soho Street Temple consuming massive amounts of prasadam. It was a Sunday feast. I stayed at a youth hostel, and I noticed the next day I was on a train to a place called Letchmore Heath, and I visited Bhaktivedanta Manor. I stayed overnight. That was my first ever Mangal Arti. And then that whole summer of 83, like I found like wherever I would go to Paris, Amsterdam, Copenhagen, Innsbruck, Austria, Frankfurt, Germany, Florence, Italy, Rome, wherever I went, I would set up at a youth hostel. And that's when, because no one was looking, that's when that summer I started to chant japa. And I would walk around the city looking for a Govinda's restaurant. And I was happy that was success when I found one that was success. So it's because no one was looking because it was so abnormal. So, but then, okay, so now more and more, I'm happy to say it's more than 40 years later. And now, more and more, like, yeah, well, this is definitely my normal, healthy life. Like that. I mean, I'm not saying I'm completely rid of the Maya conceptions, but I have enough experience now how this process works as I awaken to my normal life of self-realization and practicing bhakti yoga under the guidance of Prabhupada. Now I can say more and more, everything else seems like really abnormal. So, yeah. So so this is very important. Okay, right? Like, because this is, but yeah,
For suffering.
For suffering.
Suffering is a concoction.
thanks for that. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah, just for those online, we're here with Pran Prabhu and Aruna Madhavi and Vishwa Pran Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Vishwa Pran Prabhu, your comment about suffering. Everyone wants to be happy. Everyone wants to be happy. Everyone wants to be peaceful. Hey, thank you. I think it's Damayanti wrote, you had a lot to overcome. Thanks for that. So, and that's why, because let's just take it. Yes, so it's actually good news that the suffering, the misery, it's actually not real. But because we identify with the dream person, with, oh, this is a nightmare, or it's a whole tragic, dark soap opera, because what's causing us misery is different today than 10 years ago, but that's nature, material life, one misery, one disturbance after another. But yeah, as long as, because like, and even if it's a happy dream, it's actually tragic. It's tragic. Again, a virtual reality character, even if no, my character made a lot of money, my character's famous or whatever, but then an objective person can say, yeah, but you're not that character. You're this person who's getting pale and you're withering away because you haven't like eaten anything yet. Why not get out of the world of the electronic trees? There's real trees and real sky like that. So whether it's a happy dream, not a happy dream, we're disconnected from our, it's like a true friend can see like you're laying on the bed, you're having a happy dream or a grisly dream. Wake up to your real life, and you have real relationships and like that. So that's what Bhagavatam, that's what Bhagavad Gita is doing. Just it's lovingly and sometimes and sometimes with great force. It's just like really wanting. It's not forcing us to wake up, but giving us full opportunity. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada sometimes will say like, yeah, because it's whether it's Chaitanya Charitamrita, Dvaite Bhadra Brajagana, Sabu Manudharan. Lord Chaitanya says there's happiness and distress in the material realm. It's all a mistake. It's all illusion because it's all the dream world. It's all the dream world. And so Prabhupada would say, yes, so we're disconnected from Krishna. But then Prabhupada refines it more. He says, we're not disconnected. We're always connected. We've forgotten that we're connected. Just like if we take the dream, okay, so the person lying on the bed, And so he's having a good dream or a bad dream, doesn't matter. He's in ignorance lying on the bed. So we can say he's disconnected from actual reality. It's true, but he's really connected. There's a connection between him and the room and the furniture and the other people in the room. There's a connection. But the person in the dream world is completely forgetful of that connection. But the connection's still there. So that's it. So the nature of the soul, the diamond soul, is completely blissful and free and liberated and loving and secure and pure in relation with Krishna. And we're forgetting that's our nature. And so again, this process of bhakti, it's transformational waking up process. Saint Francis said, we are searching for what is searching, indicating like we're searching externally in doing this and having that. And if I just had that job and that much in the bank account, and if I had that respect from this group over here, we're in whatever we're seeking to do or have, we're always seeking an experience of love or respect or feeling valued or feeling powerful or free or peaceful. We're always seeking an experience. So St. Francis is saying, and that experience is actually intrinsic to the spirit soul. And we've forgotten who we are. Bhagavatam uses the term, we become envious of ourselves. We become envious of our own glorious qualities. And those auspicious qualities naturally awaken and come out of dormancy to the extent that we give ourselves to a legitimate bona fide process of self-realization. Sometimes Prabhupada equates self-realization and Krishna consciousness, because we engage in self-realization that includes understanding who we are as not the body and the spirit soul, and understanding who we are as servants of God. And similarly, so it goes both ways. We get self-realization, then naturally we awaken to our bhakti devotion. And sometimes and also it goes the other way. Whatever we've realized or not about who we are as not the body, not the mind, soul, we engage in service, just like I less than consciously engaged in consuming prasadam. We engage in japa, we engage in reading Prabhupada's books, we engage in discussing Bhagavad, we engage in service, and that service naturally brings us spiritual knowledge. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Projita Jana Yashubhara Ganam Chana Hetukam. By engaging in service to Vasudev, the son of Vasudev, by engaging in service to Krishna, naturally we get realization of who we are as spirit souls. And by cultivating realization of who we are as spirit soul, naturally we awaken to the process of bhakti. And Prabhupada closes his purport with this well-known verse from Bhagavad Gita 7.14. Devyesha gunamayi mama maya dhiratyaya mam eva ye prapadyante mayametam taranti te. That on our own, the material energy, we will just be overwhelmed, as smart as we think we are. The example given, even if someone's an Olympic swimmer, drop them in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, you got no chance. You got no chance. But then Krishna says, so it is hopeless. But then if that hopelessness moves us to humility, that my material mind, senses, and really smart intellect, and now I'm defeated. Then Krishna says, Mame vaye prapadyate mame tam tarantite. But one who takes shelter of me, then even the whole Pacific Ocean becomes like, yes, the amount of water in the hoof print of a calf. It's like if it's muddy out and a calf is walking, okay, even a small child can, or just a small child analogy. Let's say let's say if, so this is about taking shelter. If we really want to liberate ourselves from nightmare suffering and come to the true happiness of the soul. Let's say a 4-year-old child wants to cross a big city intersection. Let's say 42nd and Broadway in New York City. So the child on its own has no chance. It's just trucks and lights and yellow and green and flashing, people coming this way and that way. I mean, the child will just get smashed. Child has no chance. But the child is completely secure and peaceful and empowered. The child simply lifts its hand and holds the hand of mom or dad. And mom or dad can easily navigate 42nd and Broadway. They know what the red light means. They know what the yellow, they can assess how fast that car, that truck is coming. So the child's completely secure and peaceful. So we hold the hand of Srila Prabhupada and use our spiritual intelligence to allow him to guide us and dedicate ourselves to following the process he gave us and serving his mission without concocting I am God type of ideas. And then naturally we have this dynamic peace, Krishna Bhakti Nishkama Ateva Shanta, this dynamic peace that comes from engaging in what is normal in the truest, highest sense. So this verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 3:7-10, Yadartena vinamusha pumsa atma viparyaya patyata upadrashtu svashiras chedanadika. The living entity is in distress regarding his self-identity. He has no factual background, like a man who dreams that he sees his head cut off. Hare Krishna. Thank you for giving your attention to Srimad Bhagavatam. I welcome any comments, sharing, realizations, questions at this time.
Nice. Hearing Bhagavatam.
Thank you, Ishvapran Prabhu and Avuna Madhavi Prabhu. I appreciate your association and your natural affinity for Srimad Bhagavatam. Any sharing, any comments, questions?
I like that sentence in the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada says that factually, when the person is seeing that his head is chopped off, actually he's not seeing because his head is chopped off. I like that point. We're so stupid. We think actually I cannot see actually.
Thanks for that, Mataji. Yeah, we're like I said, we're so stupid. And so Prabhupada says that it must be a hallucination, like we're completely under the influence of heavy drugs.
Yeah.
And that's why the dream analogy can help us understand how foolish we are. Because in a dream, I might, there I am, and a tiger just chopped my head off, or a monster just chopped my head off. But we have a step back from the dream and say, okay, look, if you just saw your head got chopped off, you must not be that person. Because if you're seeing it, and if your head got chopped off, you can't see, because the seeing power is in the head.
Yes.
So that's exactly what's happening. So you can see we must be in some deep ignorance, some deep dream, some deep foolishness, stupidity.
But when somebody is going through the pain, it feels so real.
It feels, yeah.
So when we will sound very insensitive.
Yeah.
Then you say, oh, these people are not even compassionate.
Thanks for that. Yeah, and that's why like I started when I spoke. I said this is quite a grisly verse in purport. It's ghastly, and it's this is violent. And like probably, of course, everything from Prabhupada is completely transcendental vibration. But probably let's say if it's someone's first class, first exposure, we probably wouldn't recommend that this is the verse you start with.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, this is so we understand that Srila Prabhupada and Maitreya and Vidura, they're giving this ghastly analogy from care and compassion.
Yes.
And from true empathy. And so at the same time, if this is someone's first contact with Prabhupada's teachings, they might say, oh, where's the care? Where's the compassion? We can feel it. They're really wanting us to wake up to our true blissful life.
I have this experience in dreams often.
Yeah.
Where something will happen and I say, oh no, I'm dead.
Yeah.
But I'm like realizing, oh wait, I'm seeing myself as dead. I'm still experiencing something, so I'm not dead or whatever, like it's, so I've had this exact kind of, not necessarily a head getting chopped off, maybe, oh, like I'm underwater, like I'm drowning. Underwater,
Yeah.
and then I realized, well, wait, I'm still breathing. So I can't actually be drowning, so this must be a dream. So like I figure it out, and then I'm like, okay, I'm not actually drowning, I'm dreaming that I'm drowning, and I can come out of it. But so yes, it's like I'm watching myself. And so I think similarly, like we're talking about saying, like I can see my mind, I can experience my mind. I'm not my mind, I can experience my mind and the disturbing thoughts or my emotions, the pain, I can experience the pain. So that means I'm not the pain.
Yeah.
I'm not the suffering. I can like experience the suffering, and that's like a way to get out.
That you're the experiencer.
Right.
You're not the experience.
To wake up.
So one of the greatest mercy of Krishna is forgetfulness. If you remember, then you can't live. It's just like starting with our birth, we don't even have a clue how we suffered there in the womb. So Krishna's greatest mercy on us is forgetfulness. The more we forget, we can live.
Another question I have, so I've heard this, I want to ask you. So if we see something in the dream and it's something we experience, is it a karma that we have accumulated from the past and that is nullified in the dream because we are experiencing the real thing? Because if it happened really with us physically or in the dream, the experience is the same. Is that true?
Srila Prabhupada does say, basically, Srila Prabhupada's response is yes.
Yeah.
So that we can get like karma, not just from this life, previous lives, 300 million lives. And Prabhupada will say like, and they'll bubble up in dreams. Prabhupada will give the example, like in a lake or an ocean, sometimes just bubbles from deep beneath will just appear. They'll say similarly, some karmic impression from maybe a previous life might just bubble up in dreams.
And it's gone. So, especially for devotees, Prabhupada says that to the same continuation.
Yeah.
You don't have to go through that karma, that suffering. You finished it off in the dream.
Yeah, it's like a special shortcut that Krishna gives to devotees.
Yeah.
Prabhupada, did you have a comment?
Well, yeah, I said that, but also something, I mean, all of the Prabhupada's purports are very personal, and it's Prabhupada is speaking, but then, this one, especially this, like a few of these sentences, Prabhupada says, therefore, if a man sees that his head has been cut off, it means that he thinks like that in hallucinations. And I just really like heard his voice, like he's talking here.
Yes.
It's not, this is like, so just a special This, it stood out to me in this purport. Of like,
Very personal, very
this is
personal.
Prabhupada speaking in his own words, and like, it's not just some, you know, disconnected
Abstract philosophy.
knowledge,
Yeah,
yeah, knowledge. This is like Prabhupada speaking. It stood out with that, especially in that sentence.
Again, coming back to suffering, I think in the next couple of slokas it will be there. When the moon is seen as a reflection in the water and the water is moving, so you feel that moon is trembling.
yeah.
So we are projecting
Yeah.
nature of the water onto the moon.
Yeah.
The same way we are concocting something happening in the matter as happening to us, and that's how we are experiencing the suffering.
That's where Maitreya is going to go.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. So like, yeah, we can see the moon in the water and it's rippling and it's disturbed. But actually the moon is untouched.
Yeah.
And again, the good news is we're untouched. No, I'm scared of such anxiety. No, this is I'm being terrified. I'm terrified. No, as Parampara shared, actually, okay, I'm experiencing the feeling of fear. I'm experiencing the feeling of anger, but that's just the shadow world. And actually, the soul is untouched by that. And that's again the power of bhakti. We cultivate non-attachment. Now, this is very, we don't want to imitate the examples, but Haridas Thakur, Prahlad Maharaj, they were tortured in so many ways. Jesus, you know, and just they, the actual soul, they were completely unaffected. They were actually in bliss, but really, well, because to the extent that I'm attached to the extent I'm falsely identifying with the body and the mind and the ego, I'm so pained by this insult and disrespect because I'm thinking on that image, or so that's where it's like to cultivate that non-attachment to the body. The most powerful process is engaging Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Yajita Pusha Para, engaging with intensity and devotional service, and we're relieved of that misery that comes from thinking that we are this shadow body.
I think this is where Prabhupada's greatest contribution to the world is to make his disciples give that kind of association to the peers, neighbors, whoever.
Yeah.
When they see the devotees, they should also be attracted. Oh, they're doing something different.
Yeah.
They're not bothered by suffering. They're not bothered by death. They're not bothered by so many things. That's the kind of contribution what Prabhupada did is unique, and it is. So the onus really lies on devotees, us, to practice more seriously every day and not be affected.
Yeah,
We have to be a good example.
We have to be a good example.
We have to keep our eyes, ourselves very conscious that, how are we dealing. But sometimes we don't deal correctly, but we do slip, we don't know perfection yet. So we do slip, but we get up and, okay, I made a mistake. Let me not repeat it. Try to not repeat it. Try to not.
yeah, and that's with sincerity. We notice our shortcomings, maybe severe shortcomings, and we don't use that as an excuse to leave the process. Okay, let me use that as impetus to be more sincere. More, yes, that avyarta kalatva, Prabhupada, that we don't want to waste a moment outside of Krishna consciousness.
So recently, my homeowner came and I was so busy on that particular day, I was getting guests and everything. And he came after a very long time, and he started to nitpick, on everything in the house.
Critical.
Yeah, critically seeing everything, and I was so busy that I slipped and I became a little angry. And that man, he says, you do so much puja. He's Indian. You do so much puja, and you still, cannot control yourself. I mean, they expect us to be perfect, epitome of, just because we are practicing doesn't mean that, but
Become
their
control.
expectation is that high for us. And sometimes we do slip, and so we should not slip, but a human, I'm busy, okay, well, I'm telling him I'm busy, but he did not get my words, he didn't understand.
I'm reminded in your words, Mataji, that right in Rupa Goswami's Nectar of Instruction, items favorable for progressing in Krishna consciousness. So one of those is enthusiasm, confidence in the process, and patience. And I see mainly it's like patient with myself.
Yeah.
And not complacent, not like whatever, it's a gradual
Yeah.
process, not complacent,
Yeah.
but because otherwise, I go, I've been, because even if we're practicing a few weeks, a few years, a few decades, almost surely this mind has been in the material world for just trillions of lifetimes and so many species. So it might be like, okay, yeah, there's some material attachment, material desire, material qualities. All right, let me notice that and let that deepen my utsaha. Let that strengthen my enthusiasm, rather than because of impatience, I'll just give up the process. So patience with ourselves, that's key.
Yeah.
It's a key factor.
Yeah. Maybe we would have started, practicing this maybe some lifetimes before also, and maybe we would have not been patient, and that's why, we are again, starting again. So your point of being patient is very important, I believe. And we should not give up. Prabhupada says that also so many times, never give up with our consciousness. We don't give up, but we should have utsaha to do everything.
Utsaha, yeah.
This is very important.
Yeah.
Whatever we do, we should have that utsaha.
Yes.
That only will lift us our consciousness, basically.
Means whether we like how we showed up, or we're kind of disappointed in ourselves, or life is going well or not well. Utsaha, Prabhupada defines it as endeavor executed with intelligence. That whether, in our own mind or externally, whatever happens, it's a catalyst for deeper enthusiasm to practice the process. And then and Srila Prabhupada would say he's a lot more interested in a steady moon than shooting stars. So like he's most enthused by those followers who we're cultivating an internal consciousness for I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be practicing bhakti yoga with even more enthusiasm a year from now, 5 years, 10 years, rather than superstar, and then a year later, 2 years later, there's no sadhana like that.
Yeah.
Of course, to humbly try to be a superstar and serving Prabhupada and pleasing him with the results of our service. Let's do that with cultivating steadiness, steady enthusiasm. Whatever happens, I continue. Any other comments or questions? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thanks for your association.
Hare Krishna.